approved. All right, item number 3 is a public hearing, special use permit, cannabis retail sales for H Tobacco, 1310 Vermillion Street. And John Hinsman with the staff report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Planning Commissioners. Tonight we have before us a special use permit request for a cannabis sales retail license at 1310 Vermillion Street for H Tobacco. So this is the first license that we've had under this new cannabis law that we have established. And I'll give a little bit of background on this. You may know that back in 2023, the City Council adopted a zoning code amendment for cannabis businesses, requiring a special use permit to be acquired for certain commercial zoning districts for the sale of cannabis products. So this can be done via a special use permit in the C3 and C4 districts. In addition to that, we also have a separate but similar regulation within City Code under Chapter 117, which is licensing. Now, the licensing aspect is very similar to what we use for tobacco sales and other type of liquor sales throughout the city. Now, tobacco and liquor sales are not part of the zoning code. They don't need to get zoning approval to do that. But with cannabis licensing products, we did establish a provision for a special use permit in there. So there are certain aspects of this under the licensing which have a more day-to-day regulatory effect, where the special use permit is more of a long-term hold for the property itself. So with H Tobacco, which we are considering tonight, this is the first one, as I said, that's moved forward. Fortunately, we erred in the order in which we processed this. The City Council, back on April 1st, issued a license to H Tobacco for cannabis sales. However, the Planning Commission did not consider the special use permit. So we will be taking this forward with your recommendation to the City Council at their next meeting and ensure that everything is in place the way it should be. Now, in the future, we will do a better job of coordinating more closely with the city clerk to ensure that when licensings come forward for cannabis sales, that they will go to Planning Commission first and then go to City Council. As part of the Planning Commission review, we will have all the licensing information in there as far as police checks, background investigations, all the other requirements that are necessary here. So before you tonight is the application for cannabis sales. There's two actions that we have for you. One is to open up a public hearing. There is a public hearing required as part of the special use permit requirement, and then to consider a recommendation to the City Council on issuance of the special use permit itself. So this is the location on the screen as to where we're looking at. 1310 Vermillion Street is located on the west side of Vermillion, just north of 14th Street. It's surrounded by commercial development on all sides. You've got a Smoke and Oak restaurant across the street. You've got other various retail elements here, Midtown Center over here, Beermeyer Financial on the south end of the development. So it is surrounded completely by commercial development. H Tobacco has been operating out of that space since January 2023. I believe there was another tobacco entity that operated prior to that. They have successfully passed 3 random compliance checks for tobacco, and there's not been any violations of the tobacco license since that was issued in 2023. So within the special use permit provisions of the city code, we have certain performance standards which are similar to the licensing standards we also have in the code, which talks about where it can operate, who can buy it, signage, distribution, and other entities that will be obligated to follow. In our analysis of that, found that cannabis sales is allowed as a special use within the C3 district. The operational license would be issued by City Council. They are also part of a licensing requirement for annual licensure. So every year there will be a compliance check and background investigation to ensure that the operation is lawfully operating. The other thing that they had to do prior to the licensure was to go through a security plan check for the facility by the police chief, who has conducted the investigation and has signed off on that one. There's also a provision in here that talks about prohibited acts itself, about sale to people under 21, what happens if sales occur, the amount of THC level and so forth that would be allowed. So we have included that as part of the license requirement, which is a condition of approval for the special use permit. And then we also have our general special use permit regulations. We're obligated to take a look at certain performance aspects in the consideration of special use permits. Went through that with this property here. Frankly, a lot of this is not applicable when we're talking about ingress and egress and parking and refuse and service areas. Everything is adequate as it sees right now. The one thing I will note on this one, which is different from the staff report that you received, is the signage. We did note that the property has a lot of signage on site, and that signage has not been preceded by permits from the zoning department. So I am recommending the addition of a condition number 3, which would be to obtain sign permit approval prior to licensure on this one. So I have talked to the applicant on this one. He is aware of that, and that's something that they'll need to follow through on. So we are recommending approval of the special use permit with a couple of conditions: maintaining the cannabis products retail license per the city clerk's office, adherence to City Code 117, cannabis business, and Chapter 15507 cannabis businesses, that they will have to follow those regulations, and then also that addition today of obtaining signed permit approval prior to licensure. So this is a public hearing. I can stand for any questions at this time, or you may open that up. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, John. All right, we will go ahead and open the public hearing. Anyone here wish to speak? Nope. Anyone on Zoom? Nope. Nope, nobody on Zoom, and nobody here wishes to speak. We'll go ahead and close the public hearing. And we will open it up to commissioners for questions, comments. Commissioner Tyken.
One question about just SUP in general. Does this follow the property or does it follow the business?
This would follow the property on it. So this would allow for cannabis retail sales. However, if the entity was to change, they have to go through a new license with that individual.
Okay. I think that's the only question I had. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Commissioners, any other questions? Commissioner Tyken?
I was going to make a motion for
All
approval. Make a motion for approval that we recommend the special use permit for cannabis retail sales, H Tobacco, 1310 Vermillion Street, with the 2 recommendations plus the third one that a signed permit approval has to be done prior to licensure.
All right, motion to approve on the second.
A second.
Okay, Commissioner Halberg, second. Any new discussion, commissioners? If not, we'll take a vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? That motion carries.
Okay, and commissioners, that'll follow through to the city council meeting on May 6th.
All right. All right. And next up is other actions, other business.
Other business, well, we haven't met for a couple of weeks here, but we will have a meeting coming up on May 13th. That's 3 weeks from now because of the 5th Monday. We've got 4 items on the agenda already for that. We're going to be having a public hearing to consider an amendment to the chicken ordinance to look at the number of chickens kept, as well as ducks and quail, whether those should be added or not. So that'll be an ordinance amendment that we'll be considering. Also, another special use permit for cannabis sales, this at 1610 Vermillion Street. We'll have the comprehensive plan amendment and rezoning for Mint Development Company for the land that's under contract at the southwest corner of Pleasant and South Frontage Road, where they're looking at putting the retail facility, and then also a site plan for Rio Grande Express for a new trucking building at 601 31st Street East in the industrial park. So that's what I've got on the agenda so far for that meeting coming up on the 13th. Another thing that we're embarking on right now is our zoning code update. The zoning code that we have right now is almost 30 years old. There's a lot of things from my usage of it over the last 20 years that I would love to change, and now is the time to consider doing it. We're doing interviews for firms to help us with that over the next couple of days. Hope to have approval by council shortly after that. And then there'll be opportunities that we'll be bringing portions to the Planning Commission for review and consideration. So this will be a longer-term project that we'll be working with the Planning Commission over the next year or so, but it'll be nice to start embarking on that. And I think that's all that I had.
Okay, thanks, John. Commissioners, anything else for tonight? Okay, otherwise I'll accept a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
Okay, motion to adjourn by Commissioner Swedien, second. Okay, Commissioner Tegan?
Oh, sure, I'll second it.
All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned. It's all right. Had to do the official second.